Okay, everybody, it's time to expand your minds. It's Harsanyi time. David Harsanyi joins us now. He is a writer at National Review. Going to run down some of the most important things going on across the country, perhaps even around the world. Mr. Harsanyi, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm all right, man. So you've had this series of recent disclosures of what had been classified information from inside the intelligence community. It got out thanks to Rick Grinnell, and now we know that the targeting of Flynn was bad news. It was a setup. The FBI, the whole, what we've been saying for years was all true. How do you describe the Democrat media and Democrat Party maneuvering? It feels to me like nothing has changed. They're just still writing there was collusion and Flynn lied. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's a cliche, but they're gaslighting people by pretending, first by deflecting away from the point. They bring up that, that Flynn was a bad guy in other ways, that he had dealings with Turkey and so on and Russia, which might well be true, might not be true, but that's not what he was prosecuted on. That's not what he pled to. And that's not, pertinent right now in this discussion over why they set him up, why the FBI didn't think he was lying to them, but still went forward with going after him, why Mueller still, went after him when he knew that the conversations Flynn had with the Russian ambassador were not undermining U.S. policy in any way. So all of those questions need to be answered. And as we have been doing for the last few years, we just need to ignore the people the experts on CNN and Lawfare and MSNBC and just keep moving forward, because there's a lot of evidence and a lot of facts that support our position on this.
And it feels like, I don't know if you saw that Wall Street Journal editorial from the former CBS News president, where he said, I got to tell you, it was a little bit of like a Captain Obvious editorial for me. It was like, yeah, dude, we already know this. But he's saying the media is never getting less partisan, because the partisanship is actually that's where the sauce is. That's where you make your money and get your audience. And people that are pretending not to be partisan while being partisan just do so because it enhances the credibility in the eyes of their partisan audience that's watching. Oh, well, this is just the facts and the truth that I'm getting from my left wing hack. But it feels like we've now at least recognized there's no accountability in any of this stuff for being no one. I have yet to see a single mea culpa editorial from anyone about being wrong on Russia collusion, the whole Flynn targeting, all of it. Have you seen one? I haven't seen a single one.
No, I mean, I wrote a really long rant against the media a few weeks ago, and in it, I made the point to say that I think that the incentive in the media today, right, is to be partisan. It's not to be a good reporter. You don't make a lot of money. Your job isn't any safer. You don't build a giant audience on Twitter by being straight down the line reporter. That's not what you do. What you do is you become a partisan and you go after Donald Trump, for the most part, and you're going to build a big audience. So to walk back 3-4 years of your hysterics over Russia collusion, that destroys your brand. You can't do that. You just have to move forward. And as you said, there is no accountability. Like, when I worked at a newspaper 15 years ago, let's say, a pretty big newspaper at the Denver Post, and I had written something accusing someone of something horrible, like being a traitor or sedition. They want a lot of facts to back that up. And if I had been wrong and had gone out on a limb, I would have to answer for that, right? And for much smaller things than that. Obviously, I was, covering local news for the most part in the beginning when I was reporting, but even then, even in those stories, there was accountability. You get in trouble. There's none of that today. You can just move forward. You can be Max Boot or whoever and say whatever you want, and even as a columnist, and never have to answer for your mistakes, which are abundant, right? So,
and I've got to say, one part of this that feels like it has been lost, and maybe you can help. You write very excellent columns at National Review, and this is a theme I'd like to be just more broadly understood as the public grapples with what happened here, at least the people that are willing to look at it honestly, is the way that all of our, they talk so much about our institutions, right? That was a huge talking point for the first few years that Trump is undermining our sacred institutions of democracy, like whatever that means. It wasn't even really clear always what that was supposed to be. By criticizing some people in the press, he's attacking the First Amendment. I mean, the stuff they said is insane. But the inability to understand what it means when good faith is not an expectation for those in power within the bureaucracy, particularly in law enforcement. I mean, what they've really fallen back on in the Russia collusion thing is, well, these FBI guys, they believe that Flynn was a Russian agent, so everything else they did is more or less justified. Well, when I was in the CIA, let's say that I was working with someone in the FBI and I fed him. I said, I think this person might be who has classified information, might be handing over classified stuff. I've just got a gut feeling about it. If the FBI then raided that person's house, threw tear gas in, pulled them out of the shower naked with MP5s drawn on them, normal human beings would have a problem with that. But in the Russia collusion situation, we're told that that's okay.
And let's concede to them that everything they say about how this started is true, right? The gut feeling, they thought Flynn was a bad guy. They believed a lot of what was in the dossier, etc. After you see what happened, and after you see the abuse of power that Trump could use right now if he felt like, according to their own standards, you would walk it back and at least say, listen, I think Trump's a bad guy. I think he's in bed with Russia in many ways I don't like. I think Flynn's a bad guy, but we have a process. Process is more important, and justice is more important. And having a police force and an FBI and a Justice Department we can trust are more important than just going after Trump all the time. But they can never concede a step. It's like the whole thing with Trump. People think I'm, because I defend him on this, I'm pro-Trump, right? I don't really care that much about Trump. I care more about the abuses that are going on. If trust me, they would have done this to George Bush, Mitt Romney, anyone all of those guys, in my opinion. But Trump is the only president who sort of fights back the way he does. I'm not sure that's always a good idea, but quite often I think it's fine. And that's what makes them even madder and more sort of, stuck in a position that they won't even concede the most obvious things like that Flynn was railroaded. It seems obvious to say, okay, Flynn was railroaded. This is over anyway, right? The Russia collusion thing's over. It's fine to concede things now, isn't it? Seems to me it would be, but they don't.
Speaking of David Harsanyi, David, I also want to ask you about the big fight right now over mail-in ballots for the whole election and what's going on with all these different states. And, also, I don't know if you can just tell us a little bit about what Pelosi's trying here, but what do you see going on and how obvious is it to you that this stinks to high heaven?
That's begging the question, is it not? But, yeah, I actually do think it stinks. I mean, it stinks in the sense that they're using an emergency to try to push through initiatives that they have been, a hobby horse for them for years and years and years. So they're using this emergency to push that through. They're in a sense, what I don't like is not just the paper ballots, but that we're trying to nationalize the election process. I think that those are problematic. As far as paper ballots themselves, I don't like them because I think it shouldn't be easier to vote. I think it should be harder to vote. For all Americans, I've never hidden that. So I think I think if voting is actually sacred and actually as important as they say, that we should have to put a little effort into it.
Yeah, I feel like if the state can mandate that you might have to show up and spend a couple of weeks of your life, determining whether or not someone who got caught with a pound of coke somewhere should go to prison. I feel like if you're able to do that as part of your civic duty, you should be able to show up and vote in person. It doesn't seem to me like it's asking too much, especially if it's every 4 years.
Right. And I think that part of this effort to make it so easy to vote that essentially we come to your house, you do what you want, we take the vote from you, we move on, is to compel people or entice people who don't care to vote, who don't know what's going on to vote. I think you want ignorant voters. I think that's the key. And I have long had a problem with that. In fact, I still believe, despite the history of this, because I think we're in a different world now than we used to be, that there should be some kind of test for voting.
Wow, David Harsanyi with a test. This This is spicy stuff. People get so upset whenever you say a basic civic test for voting, for example. Oh, my gosh. We're not even allowed to have English as the national language.
I understand this is never going to happen, but I think that having some listen, I don't think it would even change any of the results, but I think having some basic understanding of American civics, the kind of understanding that a new citizen has, right? They take a test, you take a test to become a citizen. My parents took a test to become a citizen. Is something that we should easily be able to pass. You can take it a million times if you need to, but you should need to know the very basics of civic life to vote. Now, obviously, there's an ugly history there because people have tried to take away the right of African Americans to vote in the South and all of that.
Right.
I get it. It's a different world. I think that that we need a more educated electorate. But this is just, of course, a thought experiment because it's never going to happen.
I mean, when I vote in New York City, I'm always amazed. You look at the ballot, and I'm a reasonably, I have a good general knowledge of a lot of things that are global affairs related. I can't even tell. There are so many languages that the ballots are printed. I can't even tell you what all the languages are. I mean, I think they get into like Sanskrit and Thai, and I mean, I can't tell all these things apart.
I've never been one of these like people who gets mad that there's a press 2 for Spanish, kind of press 1 for Spanish actually these days. But I think that the English language is one of the glues that holds together society and helps newcomers become Americans. So I do worry when you have people voting who don't even maybe have any clue what's going on.
David Harsanyi. Dave, what's your next piece going to be on?
Trump's executive order on tech companies, which I absolutely hate.
Oh, give us a quick. I was going to let you go back to your life, but give us a quick preview here. What's your take on it?
This is my life, man. This is an Obama-esque kind of runaround of the legislature, which didn't intend this law to be, there to make sure that we have a fairness doctrine. It was there for other reasons, to stop people from being sued all the time on the internet and to help websites deal with indecency on their site. So I think that that's not the will or the intent of the legislature. And more than that, he's setting up some kind of like White House task force where people are going to be able to report on other people who are censoring them. I mean, and now we're going to have the White House keeping lists of censorship. It's of private on private sites. It's just, I think it's an illiberal idea. But more than that, I just don't, I'm against the fact check that Twitter did. I think it was stupid and arbitrary, or not so arbitrary, maybe just targeting the president. But that doesn't mean I think that, now we should be able to, tear apart relatively neutral. Don't get me wrong. I think that the criticisms of Twitter and Facebook and YouTube are merited. But I think that the solution that you're coming up with is only going to empower government. And when you have Attorney General Kamala Harris implementing those rules, you're not going to like it very much.
All right. David Harsanyi at National Review, everyone. David, thanks so much, man. Appreciate it.
Anytime. Thank you.
Leadership today also apparently consists of spreading vile conspiracy theories on Twitter about the death of a former staffer for then Congressman Joe Scarborough, and doing it over and over again, traumatizing her family and her husband so deeply that he wrote to Twitter begging the company to take down the president's tweets because they're not true about his wife. What a little man. He's just a little man. He's the leader of the free world, and he is a little man. A self-proclaimed wartime leader. A leader in the midst, he says, of a transition to greatness for the country, spreading falsehoods about a dead woman, despite the pain and the pleas of her husband and the family. He doesn't even have the guts to say he doesn't care about what they think. No, he doesn't have the guts to say, you know what, I don't care what they think because this serves my political purposes. That's why he's doing it. He doesn't have the guts to say that because he is just a little man, despite his girth and size. He's a little man inside, and he knows that.
Okay, first of all, I mean, George Stephanopoulos is a little man. If we're going to go there, if we're going to talk about, and second of all, isn't Anderson Cooper supposed to be an objective journo? Calling the president repeatedly, a derogatory name, or to take a shot at him in this way. But we're supposed to stay night after night, tune in to watch Anderson read off of a prompter and ask obvious questions of basically nothing but Democrats and all pushing the same point of view. Yeah, that seems objective. That seems fair-minded to me. I also, though, I have a more serious point to make here, and look, I tell you this, I think the president likes to sometimes, Rush. I know Rush said this yesterday. The president likes to poke at his enemy sometimes, and I'll leave it to you as to whether or not you always agree with how he does it. All right, but on to the CNN component of this for a moment here. Anderson Cooper is expressing a lot of emotional solidarity with the family of this woman who died a long time ago. And I just would note, has Anderson Cooper ever expressed any solemnity on air for the people who have been destroyed, their lives ruined, recently by CNN? I just, here he is. He's taking a moral stand. Trump is putting the family through so much pain. And look, it seems like it's a very tragic situation for the family, and it would be nice if everybody would have respect for that. But does CNN ever talk about, what has been done to, General Flynn is a perfect example of it. You think that his career and reputation being ruined, threatening to throw his son into prison that got didn't do anything wrong. Does CNN ever get bothered by that? Do they worry about the people that they have doxxed and gotten either fired from their jobs or gotten, just everyday civilians, normal people who get death threats because CNN wants to make a point about someone? Remember that guy who did a meme? I didn't remember what the meme was now, but it was a meme that involved Trump, I think, beating up a CNN logo or something. And then they found out who he was, and they went after him. What I'm trying to tell you is that CNN is really no more ethical or decent than Media Matters for America, which is a trash heap where any person of integrity and character would be ashamed to work. Ashamed. CNN is getting very close into, at least for the on-air people, into that category. Like, I understand for producers, you got to get the jobs where you can, and CNN pays well and everything else. But for some of these on-air talents, when do they feel like CNN is just doing damage, is actually harming people? They did a lot of damage with Russia collusion. Happy to see people sent to prison for no real reason. Happy to see reputations ruined, to smear people in the public. No remorse over this whatsoever. Tapper getting this whole thing started. Cooper fanning the flames the whole time. Don Lemon going on TV to just be an idiot. I mean, what exactly? And then, Aaron, does anyone watch Aaron Burnett's show? It's CNN. I'm sure they've got, a built-in audience in all the airports, so I'm sure some people are watching it. What's amazing to me is that someone like in Aaron Burnett's category, even at CNN, has any negotiating power whatsoever with management, because no one, you replace Aaron Burnett with 15 other people at CNN, and no one is going to notice or care. Cooper has a following. There are some others there that have their own following, but some of those anchors, this is a more of a business commentary. It's remarkable to me. Oh, wait, but I mentioned Don Lemon. We also have Don Lemon here. Play 19.
Okay, so the president was speaking at an event on protecting the health of seniors. And you know what? If he really cared about seniors, he would encourage people to wear masks to save the lives of those seniors, who make up a large portion of the coronavirus deaths. But this president would rather mock a reporter. He would rather mock Joe Biden for doing what every American has been doing, most Americans have been doing, the right thing, and that is wearing a mask, mocking him for being a real man, unlike the president, and doing what he should be doing.
These are their news anchors. And they're trashing the president of the United States night after night in personal terms. Oh, my gosh. And they still, they cling to the fiction nonetheless that they're an objective news network, and it just couldn't be any more preposterous. And in the background, as all these bad things are happening in this country, you got Crazy Nancy, who's how many wine coolers have I had today? Nancy's out there still. I'm a master legislator. Yeah, whatever, Nancy. She's going to push this to the max, and the media is going to be there pushing her every step of the way. Play clip 9.
We have to open the economy. We have to do so in a way that gives more opportunity for access to care, to credit, to opportunity in our country. Because as Mr. Clyburn said, this is an opportunity. Every crisis is.
It is a crisis for sure. A crisis largely at this point of lockdowners, and mostly on the left, but not entirely, lockdowners making. And just wait and see what they have in store for us in the months ahead. We have had a reordering of political priorities that has occurred in real time because of the COVID-19 crisis that are just beginning to really see where all of this is going. That's why I don't think anyone can anticipate even what the primary what the primary issues that will move that small sliver of voters come the fall. No one really even knows what it will be at this point. And you got, with Pelosi circling in the background, waiting to exploit the situation to the maximum, just you wait and see. These people are shameless. Shameless, I tell you.
It's time for roll call.
Indeed it is. Time for the roll call, the call of the roll. Thank you so much for sticking through to this point in the show, everybody. I feel like for some of you, it's one of your favorite parts of the show. It's certainly one of my favorite parts because I get to hear from all of you. Facebook.com/Buck Sexton if you want to send Facebook messages. TeamBuck@iHeartMedia.com is the email if you want to send it to us that way. Or Producer Mark loves carrier pigeon or passenger, carrier pigeon that with the little... or messenger pigeon, I guess it is, with the little thing attached to the foot, right?
Yeah, it can be like a Hogwarts owl. They'll just find me.
Yeah, exactly. Just tell your carrier pigeon, put your little scroll on its tiny little bird foot and send it out there and say, find Producer Mark. He loves it when the pigeon lands on his windowsill and leaves him a couple of presents, if you know what I mean. That's his favorite.
Yes, and if you give the pigeon fudge for me, too, that'd be great also.
There we go. Fudge. What is the one food you have not been able to get in quarantine that you are, as soon as like all the options are on the table again, you're just going to go after with a vengeance?
It was sushi for a while because all the Asian restaurants pretty much closed because people were not going to them because they thought they had coronavirus, which was obviously wrong, but that's just what happened. I guess now, I mean, maybe it's just because I haven't found a good Chinese place in my new area, but I think Chinese food's the one thing I haven't had in a while.
I have not. You know what? You're right. I haven't had Chinese food the entire. There are a couple of Vietnamese restaurants that have stayed open, and I've been ordering from them all the time. And let me tell you, if you eat enough pho, your belly will grow. But I haven't had Chinese food in a while, so that will be kind of exciting. And there is gluten-free Chinese in New York for those of you who are like, how can you do that? Turns out you can. All right, let's get to it. Steve, love your show on Freedom 93.7 in the Denver area. Yes, we love our Denver audience, man. You guys have made us the number one time show. Can I speak English? Maybe you're not going to listen anymore if I don't. Number one show in our time slot in Denver. So thank you so much for that. And keep listening. Keep telling people about us. The curve has been flattened, Steve writes. Now it is a time to flatten the fear. People may be doing more harm than good to themselves by wearing those silly masks outdoors. Besides, they look like stupid sheeple, and that offends me. Yes, liberals' mass stupidity offends me. Give Tallulah a pat on the head for me, and of course, shields high. Well, Steve, thank you so much for writing in, man. And yes, I will give Tallulah wants more than a pat on the head. She usually wants me to like kiss the ring on her little paw so that I have shown Her Royal Highness that I've paid all necessary homage to her. So there you go. But the masks outdoors, it makes no sense. But people are doing it all over the place. It's become a symbol, as Dr. Fauci. Now, I know some of you are going to figure out that my Dr. Fauci sounds a little like my Joy Behar. Fauci and Bayhoff. Think about that as a show. That would be quite a show. We'll have to see if I can make that one happen. Andrea. Hey, Buck. Black & Decker Craftsman is closing their plant in China and moving to Texas. Maybe Buck and producer Mark should follow their lead. Andrea, I'm just telling you, producer Mark he's already cast his vote for Florida. If the Freedom Hut goes mobile, it's going to be real tough to get this guy to go anywhere other than Florida. That I can tell you. How much can I really disagree with that? You got great food, great weather. It's not a communist dystopia. There's some upside to it.
Close to the beach.
Beaches, beautiful beaches.
Have I mentioned lately that Florida has no state income tax?
Yes, and no state income tax. I'm into it. TJ writes in, Buck, I'm not a fan of the Trump 4D chess theories, and I know that Trump often shoots himself in the foot via Twitter, most recent example being Trump's insistence to go after Scarborough on these murder conspiracies. With that being said, is it possible that Trump's trying to get himself kicked off Twitter? My theory being that the most effective way to hit Twitter hard would be for them to disown him and not him leaving them. Perhaps he's trying to find a way to effectively switch over to a new platform like Parler. I know this is fairly out there as a grand conspiracy, and it's much more likely that Trump just likes to shoot himself in the foot, but just trying to think outside of the box. You know. TJ, I don't think that that's what's going on here. I think the president likes to stick his thumb in the eye of his ideological opponents and doesn't like to play by the rules of decorum they set, even when sometimes those rules of decorum would be fair, or would be understandable. Trump, he doesn't hold back. He throws punches, and that's the way it's going to be. As for Parler, these other apps, I just think that it's such a look at Facebook and the durability of Facebook. I think that once a social media platform has achieved that true dominance, it's a winner-take-all position. And second and third platforms are really irrelevant because you need that critical mass of users and you need all of that to... it's just look, how many of you use a search engine other than Google, honestly? Think about that for a second. I mean, there could be 100 search engines out there, but you really just use Google, don't you? Producer Mark, do you ever use a non-Google search engine?
No, and anybody who uses Bing or something, I just look at them like, why?
Yeah, I don't even really know how to... I mean, Yahoo... All I need to know about Yahoo is that they paid... they had Mr. Mayer as a CEO, and she basically destroyed the company. Yay! Good job. So, yeah, I can't get excited about any other social media platforms these days. And, we've tried, and we've even had some that we've partnered with on the show, but it's just so difficult to get to that critical mass of users. It's very high hurdle. Gina! Hi again, Buck. So the president's announcement today, he wanted to regulate platforms like, whoa. The only thing that should be done is to create them all as publishers and retract all the protections afforded to them as neutral social networks. Then they can see the litany of lawsuits that will come as they face libel for publishing false info. Being a federalist, I do not believe a president is able to slap back a private business while applying their rules, as they are published for all to agree to, is something we would champion or should champion. There seems to be a better and constitutional way to make them see the light. Shields high. Gina, I think you're correct. I mean, this is what I've been saying, too. We have to make sure that these social media platforms are living by the same rules that other media platforms do and the same standards that they do. And if they're going to be engaged in publisher activity, as in the active editing of things just based on what they like and don't like, well, then don't they have to be responsible the same way that a newspaper would for what they are printing? That's the center. That's the heart of this debate right now. And I don't think that the executive order. Well, we'll have to see what the president has to say about this executive order and what the specifics of it Steve, Buck, I enjoy your show, but your championing of Aunt Becky is tiresome. She's getting far less of a punishment than she deserves. Remember, her conniving dishonesty likely deprived 2 deserving young women of the positions her daughters were awarded. Elites simply don't deserve special treatment as a result of their wealth. Whoa, hold on a second, Steve. First of all, thank you. Write in, give me heat when I deserve it. I am biased in favor of Aunt Becky, not because she's an elite, but because I had a huge crush on her when I was a kid and she was on Full House and she was like the hottest adult lady I'd ever seen. Okay? So it has nothing to do with, oh, she's fancy and the elites. It's because when I was 15, I was like, Aunt Becky's so pretty. Aunt Becky's pretty. That's it, you know? So that's all I got for you. I don't know what else to tell you. I'm not saying it makes me right. But I am also, though, hold on a second. Months in prison? Months in prison for this? Why can't, the school should just, take the next 2 people they had on the waiting list, kick out her 2 girls, and, pay a big fine or something. But, I mean, I think prison's a little... her husband, Massimo, is going to prison for like 6 months. So, anyway, I mean, I'm sorry you think it's tiresome, but I just want to be clear. It's not because they're, like, fancy. I don't give a crap. I love fancy people who are bad going to prison. It's great. It's because when I was young, she was very pretty, and I liked her. James, Buck, when you get the president on the podcast, you should let him do roll call. That would be so cool. Shields high from WGY. Well, my friend, if that happens, that would be a really fun idea. Could you imagine that? The president doing roll call? Oh, my gosh, that'd be great. Like, here I am in the Freedom Hut, the most free Freedom Hut of any Freedom Hut in the world. It's like the best Freedom Hut. Yeah. Pablo writes in, hey, Buck, I remember you did a good podcast, which you named MSNBC Can't Math Good. We do. When there's opportunity in the news cycle, we do have some pretty great titles, I got to tell you. There was a CBS story reporting that since my state has opened, we have experienced a 111% increase in Wuhan flu cases. Before we opened, there were 35 cases, and since open, we have an increase to 39 active cases. I went ahead and did the math myself and came up with a fraction below 9%. I did discover that 39 is about 111% of 35. Apparently, leftist journalists didn't have to take basic math. Shields high, Buck. P.S. Keep fighting the good fight. I think your show is the best on the air. Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate that. It's very kind of you, Pablo. It means a lot. And yeah, no, it's true. Look, journalists can't math good. And I'm not exactly a math wizard myself, so I try to. But I own my mistakes. I own them. Bart. Hi, Buck. Not sure how to email you. Well, apparently you are sure how to email me, Bart. But wanted to say I listen to your show daily and really enjoy it. That being said, I have to let you know your Dr. Fauci impersonation cracks me up. Always gives me a good laugh on the days I need it. I work at a box factory in Coleman. Also, I've been essential through this entire fiasco our country's going through right now. I appreciate your show and your opinions you share daily. Keep up the good work and impersonate Dr. Fauci more. It's hilarious. Well, Bart, we need to know, are you doing the mitigation, are you mitigating in your sleep? Or are you making sure you're washing hands in the shower? You can't just get in the shower, turn it on, do a little scrub, armpits, back, your bum area. You got to make sure you actually use the soap. And you sing happy birthday to yourself and you wash your hands in the shower for the full mitigation effort. So it's a public service announcement to you from Dr. Fauci. Just want to make sure it's helpful.
Does Dr. Fauci use a loofah?
I had to have an ex-girlfriend a long time ago explain to me. I was like, what is that thing in the shower? I didn't know what it was.
I recently started using a loofah.
No,
life-changing.
Come on.
Life-changing.
Really?
It's great. I feel so much more clean.
Hey, producer Mark, his man card is stamped so many times over. He's pro loofah. He's pro loofah.
It's like a washcloth, but better.
All right, roll call continues on here. Angela writes in. Oh, but before I get to this, we got a fun Team Buck announcement for you but I can't. Producer Mark said he would code red me but we do have something coming. I can say that, right, Producer Mark?
I mean, you already did.
What? I didn't say it.
I know.
I didn't say the thing.
I just love when we have pre-segment conversations like, just don't say anything, just do a normal show, and then you're like, you can't help yourself sometimes.
But I just said the thing about we're doing the thing. I didn't say what the thing is.
And now we're just going to leave him waiting.
That's right. Well,
the thing is that Buck is going to record Siege of Malta by the end of this year.
He loves to throw Malta in my face, which is fair because I haven't done it yet. Angela, hey, Buck. So the best thing I've seen on Facebook is requiring a mask now is like, okay. Our VA governor's an idiot. We have to work outside. At least I don't have to wear a mask then. I am also high risk, but I refuse to live my life one day in fear. I have autoimmune and celiac. I'm sorry to hear that, Angela. As you know, I have celiac too. Maybe more going through testing now, but I will not wear a mask except for work where they're crazy enough to require it. Angela, just be safe. Take smart precautions, and God bless, and keep your shield high. Richard, hey, Buck. Hello from North Carolina. I'm sorry I'm behind on your show. Richard, we saved a seat for you. It's okay. But I am catching up. I'm very excited you're coming here. I got yelled at the other day by someone because I was outside my house not wearing a mask. I gave them a colorful response. People have lost their mind. Shields high. Oh, that reminds me. I was going to give a speech in North Carolina in June, but because of state regulations, the hosts have asked me to push it back to August. So I was going to go, but state I can't fight City Hall, so to speak, so we pushed it to August. I will be in the great state of North Carolina giving a speech for a whole bunch of folks. Justin writes, hey, Buck, I literally yelled yes when you made the point that the governors are absolutely responsible for following idiotic and reckless advice from the CDC regarding nursing homes. That's the problem with blue states. I'm in New Jersey. The governors are followers, not leaders, and it is time for leadership. You asked how we can resist the lockdown governors the other day. I say we take a page out of the Democrat playbook and start recall campaigns just like they did to Scott Walker, except we actually have good reason. What are your thoughts? I mean, Justin, I love the idea of recall campaigns in some of these blue states, except, I don't think the Democrats want to hold people responsible for this. They don't think that what Cuomo did is a big problem. So I don't know. Here we go. Kristen, I would honestly prefer you stop trying to do Trump. I don't think anyone does him well, not even Alec Baldwin, who comes closest. It's hard to do Trump's voice without sounding like he's being mocked. So just let that one stick with Bernie, Alex Jones, etc. Yeah, Kristen, I'm with you. I think I'm going to hang up and Annie, and I just gently imitate the president with fondness and affection. But I'm not good. It's not. You know why? My heart's not in it. You're right. My heart's not in it. Where with other impersonations like Dr. Fauci, my heart's in it. My mitigation and my heart. That's going to be the show today, everybody. Talk to you tomorrow. Shields high.